So this is the Oz report for September 7th, 2024. And let's start with PLEX and PLEX adjacent items. Finally, there's some relief on PLEX, right? PLEX down 1.5%. It's still trading 10% over a 52-week average, which is, honestly very, very massive. But if we're looking at the graph in-game, you can see that certainly it has plateaued and it's at least approaching a downward slope here. So the reason for that is that in the New Eden store, there are really no discounted, very favorable packages right now. There are some Skinner materials there for PLEX, but that's not going to move the needle enough. So we have no big sales that I can recommend right now in the New Eden store, and as a result, the PLEX price finally has plateaued a little bit. Nevertheless, I mean, we're talking about a price at 5.44 million sell. And that combined with the fact that PLEX is basically gone from the market. So it's at 0.0. That means there's less than 0.1 trade days available, right? The current PLEX available, it can only sustain an hour or two until new PLEX has to hit the market. So you guys, if you're holding PLEX right now, right, pay attention to the market, because there's so little PLEX in the market that it can spike absolutely. Should CCP release another very good value sale in the New Eden store anytime this week or next, with PLEX being in this short supply, then it's going to spike and you need to be ready to sell at a moment's notice, all right? Or put up some sell orders. I don't know. We have half sales tax anyway, so right now it's a good time to liquidate anyway if you are thinking about liquidating. The market is thirsting for PLEX, and they're just so there's just none out there anymore. If we look at the other PLEX related items, so skill extractors are rising again. That makes sense. We had the big sale in July, then we had another sale going on in August that had a skill extractor in them. So it was just dropping, and now it's slowly recovering again. There's no reason skill extractors shouldn't hit 600 million again unless there's a sale before, because people will have spun up so many skill farms over the last 6 months or so, because skill farming was profitable, that we are going to see a big demand for skill extractors in the next month, right? If you look at large skill injectors, you can see that they continue to drop, as I have predicted in the last month anyway, because the more skill farms you have spun up, the more skill injectors are available in the market. And so these are not limited in supply. These are very abundant right now. And if we actually look at the skill farming formula that we also always look at together here, then you can see that right now, just looking at the 12-month subscription by PLEX, a skill farm actually loses money on the account, about 300 million a month. That is not taking advantage of any sales. So most skill farms will still be profitable because there are some sales here and there that you can take advantage of. But obviously the 12-month subscription or the 24-month subscription are the most comfortable and structured way of doing this. So this is certainly not irrelevant, all right? This minus 300 million right there. So right now, the amount of people spinning up skill farms certainly has slowed down. And I typically don't react to comments during the Oz report, but since JDO44 is bringing up the PI argument here, I do not consider PI revenue ever for skill farming, because PI, it sounds passive, but it's actually quite active, right? Even if you only pick up once a week or every 2 weeks, it's still a huge difference between doing almost nothing on the skill farming side or doing something on the skill farming side. So of course, PI can always counteract that. And if you're only running a few accounts, then absolutely. But it will matter for a skill farm of 10, 50, or 100 accounts, which do exist out there. But you're absolutely right, Jado. That's a valid point to discuss. I have agreed, or I have decided not ever to include anything beyond the stuff that doesn't take a lot of time. All right. Let's go back to our dashboard here. And let's look at things that are rising in price this week. So one thing I want to mention is Amber microcerosin. That's one of the gas cloud materials that that have been dropping. You can see overall gas clouds are still trading way below 52-week average because especially the low and null-sec gas is just used so little nowadays compared to pre-equinox, and so there really wasn't a demand there. I think the price has just dropped so far that some people are now buying up again because they are speculating it to go up in the future, and that's not a dumb speculation, right? That is entirely possible. You know, CCP taketh and CCP giveth, and so sometimes they change the demand and the use of certain materials on a whim. And so it's absolutely a fair investment market move right now if you want to buy amber or golden or any of the microcerosins. So that's up 20% this month. Interestingly, Guardians are up 30%. Some alliances flying lots of Guardians apparently. And then, you know, as we saw last week as well, some more XType Dead Space modules going up. After the show last week, you know, after 5 of them were rising in the top 10 here because the escalations were just happening less than before, and so the availability of these modules was just less in the system. I started liquidating large stockpiles of this, and let me just say, they all went, right? I was able to liquidate a lot of them. There's a lot of demand in the market still. I'm guessing it's a mixture of people investing now and actually, you know, using these or fearing that these are going to get even more expensive. So, you know, XType Dead Space modules definitely high in price right now, and they are still moving though. So, very interesting market to be in. If we look at what's trending down this week, you can see it's dominated by raw moon materials. If we look at my dashboards, overall moon materials down 3%. That is quite significant. This is the backbone of T2 manufacturing, right? This is going to go straight into lower ship prices. And these have been dropping in the last few weeks. And this is either people reacting to future impact of Metanox moon drills that are going to be passively mining some of these moon materials, or it's the direct effect of Metanox products already hitting the market. And so we're looking at raw moon materials trading 11% under 52-week average here, and still dropping. Some of these, if you look at these, you know, hydrocarbons, that's an R4 moon material, dropping 28%. That is massive. Vanadium, titanium dropping 15 to 20%. This is quite massive and very, very significant in the EVE economy. Interestingly enough, we see precursor weapons dropping again. We saw some of them rising last week because Abyssal material prices were rising. Now they're dropping. There's just a lot of a very, very dynamic market. We were seeing that in the monthly economic report earlier. People did run fewer Abyssals last month. So, you know, there was higher prices for Abyssal materials, but fewer people running them, even though they should have been more profitable. You know, could be a summer slump, could be people running other Equinox content. So, haha. You know, it will be interesting to see where Abyssal numbers go next month, but the Abyssal materials and the modules are certainly in flux. If we look at what's in short supply, I already mentioned PLEX. PLEX is essentially gone in the market. We can also see some ships being in very, very low supplies. You can see here the Scorpion Navy issue, for example, and the Ishtar. So the Ishtar is the main ratting ship in nullsec in EVE Online. So the Ishtar being in short supply just means a lot of people are buying these ships to rat. And then we have Morfight here, which is interesting, right? Morfight is not one of the minerals that can be generated in nullsec by currently through the Equinox changes. It's also one of the main components in Marauders. And Marauders are very, 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 very popular ships right now because they are very, very powerful. And so Morphite is in high demand. It's not in higher demand than it was before. And there's no, there's no release on the horizon through Equinox changes. So very interesting to see where Morphite will go as well. But things that are in short supply, these are all typically things that could be spiking very soon because the market tends to sell out. And remember, all of the items that we're talking about here is my filter that I set here is 5 billion ISK minimum daily trade volume. So all of the items that I always mention in the Oz report, those are all very high volume items, just because I want to talk what's very relevant in the EVE economy, and everything below that kind of is arguably not. Right? So largest drop in supply is just like what dropped the most in sell orders from last week to this week. And we see here also the Scorpion Navy issue. So 86% of the supply is gone. And one thing we also saw a lot in the last few weeks was fuel blocks. And you can see here, hydrogen fuel blocks, 83% lower supply than last week. So, fuel blocks are being bought out. Yes, they are used in Metanox moon drills, for example. Right? That's one thing. They're used in reactions as well. So, could be we're seeing lower production and we're seeing dropping moon prices. So my money would be on people buying them up to use in Metanox moon drills. There's some PI that goes in here, robotics, what is it? I think miniature electronics, coolant, that sort of stuff. So if you're interested in PI, then this has impacts there, and you can look at what goes into fuel blocks if you want to be there. The amber microcerrosin we see here too, 65% lower. So this is an indicator of people, buying up these sell orders because they feel like the price is too low, or because they want to produce with it in the future, for example, capital ships. And then also things like Sisters expanded probe launches. So these are LP modules that you buy with Sisters of Eve LP, one of the bigger non-pirate factions, and them being bought out, is probably people speculating on that market, or people that are trading with that LP and that are managing the price of that LP. That is a lot of times the reason, or those are reasons that I would have manipulated these prices in the past, possibly. But I am not trading this year, so it's definitely not me. I'm going to skip the most underpriced category because most of the stuff is just logical. So yes, microcerrosin is all underpriced technically, but the market has just fundamentally changed. There's a drop in demand for these, and so that's totally makes sense that they're trading 45% under monthly average. If you look at faction ships like the Orthrus, the Astero, and the Ekatorsa, they've all had the gas removed, and they're all just cheaper now than they were before. Neurovisual input matrix, on the other hand, that's probably still very cheap compared to before, and that's the main component for strategic cruisers, which are very good ships, and so that is probably a good investment still. And Zydrine, hey, I always talk about Zydrine. When you talk about which minerals are expensive and which ones are cheap, Zydrine is one that is in oversupply right now. So if you want to make a long-term investment, Zydrine could definitely be the case. All right. And just because somebody asked in chat, and because I am answering chat today, 5 billion over what duration? 5 billion per day. So I'm looking at daily trade volume. Okay, that wraps up the Oz report for September 7th, 2024. We're going to return to the regular stream, and I will see you guys on the Oz report next week.